We've looked at ruling. We've looked at authority, what authority means to be authorized, to be in charge. And then let's look at power, this third one, power. Actually, interestingly, power and authority go together a lot. You see, we've got these four things that we're talking about, but in particular, authority and power always seem to go together. To have authority is to be allowed to use, to be authorized to use certain forms of power. That's what authority is. You are allowed to use, you've been certified to use certain forms of power. So defining what that power is really important. If you have authority without power, it's kind of useless. Because if you have no mechanism, no ability to actually implement the things you need to do, then why is anyone going to approach you to do anything? Right? If you've ever experienced this before, where you're trying to talk to an authority figure, and they're like, well, it's out of my hands. I've got no power. It's like, well, why do you have authority then? Like, you can't do this. It's like you're on the phone call, right? It takes longer, but sometimes it's better just to be like, give me the manager. I've had that so many times where I'm on the holding on, whatever, and you're like, you can't do this, right? Let me talk to a manager. They're not going to be able to do it either, really. Well, let me talk to them, And then you rant and rave, whatever you do, in the nicest way possible. And then, I tell you, 90% of the time, you can get a manager to do a lot of stuff for you that the person before said they weren't going to do. Just want to give you that hope. If you're battling on the phone and you're like, they're never going to do it, just hold on, get a manager, just plead with them. And because they actually have more power, they can do it. But so you need, if you're going to have authority, you need to be given power. The other way around is also dangerous, the first way around is kind of useless because you can't do anything with your authority. The other way around is dangerous. If you have power without authority, then you don't have the understanding or the regulation that you need to properly wield your power. You can act out of in a wrong place and misuse that power, because the idea of being given authority by a higher source means that you've either been trained or the boundaries have been made really clear to you. The fences, the lines have been drawn really clear about this is how you can use power and this is how you shouldn't use power. If you take power for yourself, and any form of power that you could talk about, anyone can pretty much get. The key is, are you allowed to use it? Have you been authorized to use it? So you can take power for yourself in all kinds of situations. But is it rightfully yours to take? And that's why to have power without authority is very dangerous, because there's no boundaries to it. There's two main forms of power we could look at. There's hard power and there's soft power. States are given what's called hard power. So I think it's not on my slides, but I think it's Romans 13. The scripture says that the state has not been given the sword in vain. He does not bear the sword in vain. That means Caesar, any governing power, God allows him to have weapons. So that means governing powers under God's authority are allowed to threaten physical violence against you, to keep law and order. That's the way authority works. So states have what's called hard power. They threaten us, they confine us financially, and they can enforce that if we don't pay the fine. They can imprison us, take away our freedoms if we break the law. They can punish us in different ways. And different states around the world have different laws around different punishments and different things that they can do. That's hard power. No other institutions on earth have that kind of power. Only states have that kind of hard power. All other institutions, including churches, have what's called soft power. Soft power. So churches in particular have soft power, but also it operates in the social and spiritual realm, essentially. So a pastor's power ultimately comes down to Scripture, what's in the Bible. And this is why this is so powerful, because most of ministry, most of what I do and anyone who's in ministry does is you're just pointing back to the highest authority. I mean, that's, if you just want a job description right there, that's what you're doing all the time. People got their opinions. What about this? What about this? I believe this. You're like, that's interesting. What about this? Right? That's the game. That's the trick. Is we're always appealing back to, it's not a trick, you understand, I'm just being silly about my phrasing here. We're always appealing back to what is the highest authority, because here's the thing is, if somebody claims to follow God, they claim to love God, they claim to want to be a Christian, they claim to want to trust God, but then they deny God's words, then they've created a trap for themselves where they're actually denying God. So in my role, I don't have that kind of direct power in somebody's life, but I can appeal to the highest power. Say, well, what does this say exactly? That's social and spiritual power.
When you like and subscribe, this video reaches more people.